Hi there everyone, Lars here with a long overdue review for the entirety of the Owl House Season 2, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And oh boy, why do I let things sit on the back boiler for so long? Well, the Owl House Season 3 is nearly here. It's definitely coming out sooner than I expected, which does tie into my observations and critique for Season 2, though really, moving forward as I go into this review, the finger of blame will almost always be pointed right at that rabid Ricky Rat. It's interesting to see that the House of Mouse is really hurting right now because they are going bust looking for gold while passing up on all the silver loads they're sitting on. Seriously, abusing the Owl House the way that they have will only hurt Disney in the long run. And the way for them to make it right is to move forward and let Matt Brawley push his crossover ideas. And yes, the hashtag Connected Cartoon Universe is going strong over at Twitter. Check out the literally hundreds of posts exploring the potential in crossovers for the Owl House, Amphibia, and Gravity Falls. Yes, I know that Disney already has a Chibiverse, but what seriously drives viewership and merchandise, which Disney really seriously needs to do for these shows, are strongly written stories, which is exactly what the Owl House gives us. Given what drama we know has been unfolding behind the scenes and seeing how the second season was all put together, I am more convinced than ever before that the axe fell on Hootie and Friends shortly after Disney proudly greenlit 2 more seasons for the series, with speculation about possibly giving a total of 5 seasons to the Owl House. But then Ricky Rat went nuts and started meddling and hacking away. Dana Terrace and her writers went into full gear, coming up with as much as they could, come in with a much larger story after being told that they would get at least 2 more seasons, potentially 5 in total, but then being told almost immediately afterwards, guess what? All that work that you started doing, you gotta pare it back. You're only going to get 2 seasons at most, with like a couple little specials, if you're lucky. That's basically went down. So what we see here in Season 2 as we look at the pacing and what's happening with the characters and the plot, understand this: Dana isn't killing her darlings because she wants to, and if you don't know what it is, killing darlings is when an author has to cut away chapters, plot lines, or characters that they like, but ultimately don't work for the overall story. Instead, Dana had to cut down on a fantastic overall story and basically give us a hastily rushed Season 2, setting up a very, very short Season 3. So when we understand that, it makes sense why the Owl House Season 2 moves so quickly. Knowing that the end was coming, Dana had to tell the most important parts to a much larger story. Season 1 had slow down moments that were used to help build up characters and relationships, but Season 2 was given no chance to breathe. Every episode had to carry a load of plot development, world building, and character progression. Now, I personally love that kind of storytelling, but it does clash with Season 1's more whimsical nature. And that's not just because the story became darker with Bellows pursuing his dastardly goals. No, in fact, a meta-conversation between Ida and Luz basically says that the showrunners would have loved to do more whimsical adventures, like a beach episode, but they didn't have the time. So, given Disney's tamperings, Dana and her people had to shift things into 5th gear and get going fast. I would consider each episode in Season 2 similar to like a novella. You have a lot of stuff that you need to communicate with a very limited word count, and so you streamline everything, and you have to come up with very creative and efficient ways to add in as much world building and character progression as possible. This leads to some wonderfully inventive episodes like Gus boosting his illusion magic, Willow becoming the Derby captain, Luz saving the Palismans, the Titan Hunters, King discovering himself, Yesterday's Lie, the Time Whirlpools. All of that stuff was great. Seriously, Season 2 has some of the coolest concepts and character moments that I've enjoyed in a very long time. Constraints breed more creativity than if you're given absolute freedom. Yes, I know that sounds like a paradox, but it's absolutely true. And that is because if you want to tell the story that you want to tell, now that you have fewer resources and less time and one hand tied behind your back, you come up with innovative ways to still communicate the same story. Seriously, placing constraints upon yourself will engender all kinds of innovations that can lead to some really cool outcomes. Now, this hyper-focus has not been all good, however. The speed with which the season progressed did lead to some characters getting left in the dust or not getting proper development. In my opinion, Rain is the greatest victim here. They are the dashing freedom fighter resisting from within the Emperor's hierarchy. It's honestly a brilliant setup, but Ida's Requiem, that episode, is all over the place with inconsistent character choices on Ida's part and a very, very rushed romance between her and Rain, and a B-plot with Losing King that only existed to cause drama and could have been delivered with greater effect in another episode and to the same eventual results with the Titan Hunters when they are introduced. Honestly, it doesn't work. I've watched it now multiple times, and Ida's Requiem still falls flat for me. The episode, however, Them's the Breaks Kids, could have been used better. Instead, it was placed later in the season, almost kind of to undo the rushed introduction to Rain, when really it should have been one of the very first episodes introducing us to their character and setting up the potential romance between them and Ida. Another casualty to the pacing were Ida's parents, especially Del. Del captured our hearts in one good scene, and that one scene should have been spun out into a strong A-plot for an entire episode, rather than us being saddled with Amity getting her way by breaking all the rules to impress her dad and dodging all the negative consequences at the same time. That was kind of ridiculous, and I still am not a fan of what I saw there. And there's still something to be said as well that Gus and Willow could have really used with more moments and episodes, focusing on them to provide more gradual and fulfilling development to their characters. However, that would have required another season. Looking back at Season 2, I now stand even more so by what I said at the end of Season 1 when I did my review for the entire season, that it should have been split into 2 seasons. I think that had Seasons 1 and 2 been a total of 3, there would have been ample opportunity to set up this final season that we're about to get, and give everyone plenty of spotlight time and still allow the show to balance its whimsy and horror, which is really a strength to the Owl House overall. And looking back at the entire series now, an important observation to make is this. Season 2 excels where Dana obviously had the most interest. And this goes for almost all creators and authors. I even once had someone come up to me and say, I could tell where you lost interest with a couple of your chapters. And I'm like, ooh, it is obvious to the audience when an author or a creator is not as engaged in a certain part of their story. Where they are engaged, where they're really focused and interested, that is where the story is usually at its strongest. So looking back at Season 2, there are 4 places where Dana was really focused, and as a result, that is where the story truly soars. The first one is Lumity. The growing romance between Luz and Amity was very well executed in my opinion. I've already done an entire video breaking down that particular romance, and it's clear that Dana put a lot of heart and soul into this relationship. It's done well. Then the second thing is this, Hunter. Dana said that he was her favorite character, and it shows. Seriously, this guy and all his adventures are worthy of their own series. His progress is incredible. I would have loved to have seen more episodes with him as the villain to pull off an emotional redemption for the character. In a perfect world, again, Season 2 would have probably been all about Hunter the villain, and then in Season 3 we would have gotten the episodes and more that we got in Season 2 where we see him be redeemed from villain to hero, and that would have led to just a wonderfully emotional climax where he completely turns against Belos. And speaking of Belos, this is the third place where Dana really put a lot of focus. The villain. Every episode with the Emperor, where he was featured prominently, struck like a lightning bolt. He's a fascinating bad guy, and just exquisitely despicable in how he uses people and murders those even who are closest to him. And it's all to serve his own selfish megalomaniac goals. Seriously, Belos has become one of my favorite Disney villains. And then we got King. King is the fourth point of focus, and it's clear because his character grows so much in the season. Of the core 4 between Hootie, Ida, Luz, and King, he is the one who has gotten the most attention in the past 20 episodes. Seriously, even though Luz features prominently, she is the main character, King gets more development. And I cover more of that when I talk about King's sacrifice at the end of the series when I did my review. And yeah, wow. King is just such a great character. And of course, we've also got a whole bunch of other good stuff that was thrown in throughout the entire season. We've got plenty of dark humor, which is great. Steve is a shining example of a great side character. Lilith and Hootie's friendship was sweet and a welcome surprise. Amity's siblings really grew on me, and I think Aladar was robbed of some great father moments because he ended up being also a really great side character. But because we had so much focus with so little time on all of these great characters and developments, some plot points and some characters were not given enough attention. And sadly, Luz really goes downhill this season. She's still the same lovable, dorky heroine, but most of her best moments in this season are either Amity's or Hunter's or King's. Luz doesn't have very many moments where she really gets to shine on her own and show her progress. Meaning that really all of these great things that we see with Luz are actually meant to serve other character arcs. And especially after the episode Yesterday's Lie and Hunting Palisman, Luz experiences odd swings in character and decisions that don't really hold up over scrutiny. I'm sorry, but for a girl who in those same episodes shows brilliant adaptability and in season 1 had already grown so much, confronting many personal problems, the excuses of her experiencing anxiety and trauma can only go so far. Gravity Falls did the exact same thing with less to improve upon Dipper, Stan, and Ford, and with less time, with less resources, that show did more with those 3 characters than what has been done with Luz in season 2. Focus and consistency are necessary to help characters logically progress within the stipulations and confines of their world and its plot. Another character who really faltered along the way of the season was Ida. Yes, she gets a lot of great development in season 1, but character development needs to be followed up on. In the Stormlight Archive, for instance, the main characters all go through incredible character arcs from book to book. And after the 3rd book, I wasn't sure where you could even go with a lot of these characters. I thought that they had already reached kind of the pinnacle of who they were meant to be. But then the Rhythm of War rolls along book 4, and boy was I proven wrong. There's still so much that you can do with a character who's already gone so far in their personal progression. It was a rewarding experience to read Rhythm of War. But when we look at Ida, a lot of her own character progression is either in the terms of power-ups, or it's all intertwined with Rain. Actually, a lot of it is intertwined with Rain. And where Rain isn't involved, Ida's progress is wrapped up with her family, which I really like. And that's the problem. We didn't get enough of Ida and her family dynamic for that to really land well. We get a couple of good scenes, but that's pretty much it. And when it comes to Rain, well, again, Ida's Requiem really gets that whole character arc started off with a trip and a fall flat on its face, in my opinion. And so as a result, Ida's character progression felt wonky, disconnected, inconsistent, and just not the enriching experience that it was back in season 1. Now, I might be sounding harsh as I say all of this, but it needs to be said. There is something valuable to learn here about balancing all the many elements you introduce into your stories and making sure that none of your characters are allowed to stagnate, but instead develop throughout the entire course of the plot in meaningful ways along with the general pacing. Now again, this is largely a result of Disney's mishandling of the Owl House and axing the series prematurely. Had they given them the 2 promised seasons that they had said, and then maybe said, hey, 4th season is a finale, or better yet, give them the full 5 seasons, I think that Dana Terrace would have knocked it all out of the ballpark, and she would have had plenty of time to allow all of these things to develop naturally and give these characters the proper breathing room that they needed to fully develop, that nothing would feel rushed and everything would feel fleshed out and rewarding. But again, it comes back to the fact that Ricky Rat decided to cut playtime short. Meine Güte, I hate that money-grubbing rodent. All in all, the Owl House Season 2 is a triumph given Disney's meddling, but it's also a window into what the show could have been. And as novice authors, we see two things at play here. One, the pros and cons between longer and shorter stories. Shorter stories come with more restraints and require you to pull out all the stops to deliver the best tale. However, it comes at the cost of giving everything its proper due within the story. You can do way more with more time on your hands, but it also comes at the risk of growing meandering, which can also cause all of its own kinds of problems. Now, I personally love longer stories, but shorter stories told with care and really focusing on the most important aspects of its plot, world, and characters can be a phenomenal ride. And the Owl House does its best to deliver on both. Give a grand sweeping story told in bombastic, fun, fast-paced episodes. Now, secondly, I am looking forward to Season 3, but I am tempering my expectations. With a little more than 2 hours runtime, the Owl House has to deliver on character development for Luz, Ida, Hoodie, King, Hunter, Amity, Willow, Gus, Bellos, Rain, Camilla, and the Collector. The heroes have to discover a way back to the Boiling Isles, defeat Bellos once and for all, discover the history of the Wittabanes, resolve Hunter's origins, progress a few romantic subplots, explain the Collector, and figure out a way to defeat the Collector. And that is to say nothing of the societal changes within the Boiling Isles, discovering Luz's talisman, and what will happen to Luz's contact between the different worlds, resolving the Blight family drama, and a whole lot of other things. 2 hours is a lot of time, but doing everything in a way that makes sense and that is fulfilling will be a long shot. I expect the writers to cherry pick what is most manageable and important to the overall story, and that will be the focus of this final season. Now, that doesn't mean that Season 3 is going to be bad. In fact, it looks amazing as far as I can tell. I just bring this all up to help illustrate what kind of a pickle Disney has placed the Owl House in. So maybe one important bit of advice for all novice authors and creators out there is this: beware of working with Disney, because they will own you and take advantage of you. We need creators to band together, support each other, and support one another in creating strong and unique stories. There's a lot to learn from watching and analyzing The Owl House. It has been a phenomenal adventure to follow the series since it began, and I enjoyed making all of those videos earlier this year, reviewing and analyzing each episode as it premiered. And I look forward to doing that again for the final season. I really hope that the Owl House hits every ball out of the park and gets all the eyes and hearts that it can, because this story deserves it. The creators have done well with the hand Ricky Rat dealt them, and it says a lot about who Dana and her crew are as creators, and it reflects very, very poorly on Disney for what they've done to them. Again, Disney, Mickey, Bob Chapek, you want to rescue your image and make some money? Give the Owl House a parting chance. And don't leave the cash on the table. Go beyond the Chibiverse. An epic crossover event or series headed by Dana, Matt, and Alex would bring back so many people to Disney Plus and generate all kinds of possibilities for lucrative merchandise. And it would be at the least you could do to let these three have a chance to tell their stories once more and in the way that they want to. And you will actually be pleasing the fans, which again brings more money. This is a win-win-win for everyone. And if you agree with my assessment, please show your support by spreading the hashtag #ConnectedCartoonUniverse. Because seriously, let's get this idea off the runway right here. Because the Owl House is coming to an end after these last 3 episodes, but it can still have a chance at life if Matt is given the reins and is given a chance for the crossover event that he has said that he wishes to do. And it would be a chance for Dana to come back and at least tell a little bit more of her story, her way, and I think that would be phenomenal. Well, that will do it for this video. I will see you all again when the Owl House returns. In the meantime, if you are a novice author, please consider checking out our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We also have writing exercises for you to check out over at our Pinterest page, and we would love for you to join our growing community of novice authors. Links for all of that and more are in the description below. And thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing. And until we journey back to the Boiling Isles, dear friends, tschüss.